Welcome everyone to another action figure review, as I have the Medicom Mafex John Wick Chapter 4 Caine, the follow-up to the John Wick figure we've seen previously, and it's the second star of the show. Caine, played by none other than the martial arts legend in Asian cinema, Donnie Yen. You may have heard of him previously if you're into martial arts films, and of course this is his 7th Hollywood movie, I believe. So previously he's been in Star Wars Rogue One, which I did pick up at Hasbro. He's been in movies like Blade as well as Triple X, and of course previously, if you've been following his Kung Fu films, you would have seen him in some great action movies. I would have been pleased to see if Mafex did any of those figures, whether it's Killzone, Flashpoint, Ip Man, which made him a global star, recently Raging Fire as well. So yeah, super excited, highly anticipated to finally have a high-end Donnie Yen figure in my collection. I first heard of him way back in the early 90s in a TV series called Kung Fu Master. So he's come a long way, and yeah, this is not just for the John Wick movie. This is to celebrate kind of a Donnie Yen figure in the collection. So looking at the packaging, you can see it's the same kind of design as the John Wick 4 figure we had previously, with the neon lights to match up the theme of the film. A really cool shot of Caine at the front with the weapon, and then on the other side of the box you can see we have the neon lights titles once again, number 234, and we have the Medicom sticker. And then on the other side you can see it's the shot of the final duel, and this is the look you can see for John Wick as well. So then at the top we have the titles, here's a look at the bottom, and at the back we have plenty of shots with different poses, plenty of accessories included. So let's get Caine out of his packaging and take a closer look. So inside we have a transparent stand, which is included, pretty standard for a Medicom Mafex, as well as the manual certifying a genuine product. And here is the Caine figure inside its packaging. So before we take a look at the figure itself, this is the full set of accessories included. Just like John Wick, there's plenty of interchangeability for this figure. So here is the first look at the Caine figure taken out of his packaging. My first impressions, I like the overall build, the sculpt, the proportions. Most importantly, it has a striking resemblance to the character Caine, and the likeness to Donnie Yen is certainly there. So I really like the way they sculpted this. Of course, it's just a man in a suit, but that's the point of the John Wick franchise. They all look good in their suits. So previously they've done 4 John Wick figures already, so I'm sure this one will be no different in terms of the quality. So Caine, the character, did wear like a shirt and tie in the early parts of the movie, but I like that they've gone for this choice, the sweater inside, to match up with the alternate body, and it's something different to the John Wick releases. So all the John Wick figures I like, especially the hair sculpts, they have improved over the years, especially the recent one in the John Wick Chapter 3 figure. So for Caine, I think the lightness is certainly there. Of course, he does have the sunglasses, but kind of see through it, you can see that it is no doubt the Donnie Yen look. And yeah, just the way they've sculpted the hairstyles is also very accurate. And yeah, just the overall build, you can see it's the rubber material as expected, to switch it out of course later on. And then different materials for the arms, it shows off the belt, and then we have the shiny boots. So yeah, I just like the overall build of this. It is something that looks pretty simple, but of course that's the point of these characters. So let me bring in the John Wick Chapter 4. Of course, it is a man in a suit once again, and you can do some good poses together with this hopefully later on. And recently I picked up the John Wick Chapter 3, and if you have any John Wick figures, I guess you don't have to buy the John Wick Chapter 4 to go with Caine. It will look better and it's probably a bit more accurate, but if you have any of the previous John Wick figures, I think it's fine. You can kind of collect what you want and just have Caine in the collection as well. So as I mentioned, of course, mostly the John Wick looks have always been the shirt and tie, so it's nice to have something a bit different in the Caine look. And in terms of the height wise, of course, I'm sure this is accurate. I don't think Donnie Yen's as tall as Keanu Reeves. So yeah, I do like this look overall. It is just first impressions. And now we can take a look at the different accessories. Let's start off with the alternative hands. So there are 10 extra sets. So the first pair is the ones right out of the packaging, which is the neutral look. So for the first set of alternative hands, we have a pair of closed fists. For the third set of hands, we have another pair of closed fists. This one does have a gap in between, so this is for one of the accessories. And then we also get another pair of hands, which is most likely to hold on to his cane. There is also another set of hands to hold on to his cane as well, as they've included multiple parts. Here is another pair of hands to hold on to the cane. And here is the fourth pair of hands to hold on to the fourth part of the cane. And we also get a set of hands to hold on to his tracking sensor devices. And we also get a set of trigger hands for the handgun. And there's also the set of trigger hands for his dual gun. And finally, we have a set of open palms. And next up, let's take a look at his main weapon, the cane. So it does include 3 styles, 4 different parts. So from top to bottom, we have the standard cane, then we have the extended version in the middle, and then below we have the one when he removes the cover. And there's just so much variety available, you can really mix and match the different hands to go with the canes. And here is a closer look at the extended version of the cane. And here is another action shot with the canes. And I really like how you can place the handgun with the cane in one hand and then use the tracking device in the other one. And next up, we can take a closer look at the gadget included for Caine, which is some sort of tracking sensor device. And it's in the opening fight scene for Caine when he places it in the walls, and then when the opponents walk past, it triggers some sort of explosion. Of course, he uses them one by one, but for the purpose of this review, I've shown you in both the hands. So they've included 3 in total, so it's a nice touch. It's a very simple kind of accessory, but I think it's a very key one and very memorable in the movie. And here is one other memorable accessory included, which is the pencil, which of course he does use in one of the fight scenes. And again, it is pretty memorable, and it is a very small piece, so just be very careful. They could have just made one sculpted in a hand, but they've included a hand for you to place the pencil in. And yeah, you can see that it's a very small and delicate piece, but I think it is pretty detailed. Even though it's so small, they've done it really well. And here is a closer look at the handgun included for Caine. And next up, let's take a look at the alternative head sculpt. So this one with the shades on is a very good likeness to Caine. So the alternative head sculpt is the one without the sunglasses. And I think they could have done it where you just remove the sunglasses rather than the alternative head sculpt, but it's a lot more simple, a lot more straightforward when you have the choice to switch it out. And I think the likeness is fine. Of course, Caine is blind in the movie, so you can see that the paint colors on the eyes, you don't quite see them, which is actually accurate. And it's not as memorable as the one with the sunglasses, but it's always a nice touch when you have this alternative look. And let's take a look at the final accessory, which of course is the alternative body. So this is similar to the John Wick figure where you switch it out for this version. So this one doesn't have the blazer on. So let's do that now. So it's pretty simple, just be very careful, you don't want to break anything when you attach them on. So it is made out of some sort of rubber material to make it a lot more easier to install. So here is the look, the final duel for Caine, and this is now paired up with the dual gun, and this is a really nice concept, something you don't see that often for Mafex. I know they've done certain figures where you can swap out the body. They should do that more often for certain characters, but you can see it totally works. And I do have John Wick ready, and they can of course battle it out in that final scene. And now let's test out the articulation, the movement for Caine. So start off with the head sculpt, so you can rotate it 360 and tilt it left and right and downwards slightly, upwards not so much, it is slightly, but there is rotation along with the neck. And then for the arms, you can see it has these extra shoulder pads, which is a separate piece from the blazer jacket. So for the arms, you can stretch them side to side, and then you can move them forwards and backwards and kind of rotate the arm. There are some limitations, but still pretty standard. We have the elbow bends, and there should be rotation on the hand and a slight hinge. And then for the jacket, of course, there is movement since it is made out of a rubber material. So for the top half, we can rotate the full body very smoothly, which is really nice. And then backwards, not so much as the jacket gets in the way, but you can see there is movement forwards. The crunch is actually very good. And then backwards, not so much, it does kind of create a gap. And there is a rotation on the waist, 360 if you want. And then for the legs, they stretch sideways and they kick forwards this much. pretty high, which is good for Donnie Yen for those martial arts poses. And this is the rotation backwards, and the full thigh rotation, a knee bend rotation on the boots with the toe hinge, and side to side as well. So you can get this Caine figure in some dynamic poses. Get him in the right pose, you will have some cool martial arts looks. So now for the size comparisons, starting off with the Mafex line with the John Wick Chapter 4 on the left and the John Wick Chapter 3 on the right. And here it is next to the Hasbro Star Wars Rogue One Chirrut, also played by Donnie Yen, as well as an SH Figuarts Bruce Lee. And here it is next to some Jada Toy Street Fighter with Ryu and Fei Long. Here it is standing next to some Marvel Legends with a Captain America and the Wolverine, as well as next to an SH Figuarts Goku and Shang-Chi. And here it is next to some PC toys for The Matrix with Neo and Agent Smith. And now for my final thoughts on the Mafex Caine for the John Wick Chapter 4 line. This is a straightforward addition that really adds to what's been a great line of figures so far for the John Wick franchise. It's Caine. He's a cool looking character in a suit. He's great at fighting. He has some unique weapons, some different gadgets, and it's a great addition to the line. It's about time we saw more new characters other than just John Wick for the Mafex collection, and Caine has always been the first choice. I don't see many flaws in this since it has many accessories. Even for his Caine, they went all out on this with the variety of looks. Not just one, we have the standard look, the extended one, the two-part look. We have the guns, we have the sensor devices, the pencil, the alternate body, and the gun for the dual battle, which is essentially like a 2-in-1 figure. The only thing I'm going to say is, even though I don't think it's a negative point, is the alternate head sculpts. Maybe they could have changed the expression, but that's just me thinking of an excuse, and there isn't really much to say for the disadvantages. So this one slots right into the figure line with John Wick. Whether they are battling each other out or teaming up, it looks great overall. So my score is a 9 out of 10. If you like John Wick 4, you'll definitely like this figure. I say add it into your collection to build on this universe, and who knows if they'll release new characters for the future. Like, comment and subscribe, and thanks for watching.